Welcome to Power in Words. Consider this space a quiet sanctuary, a gathering ground where we come together to find inspiration, uncover hidden strength, and share the kind of positive energy that sustains us through the longest nights. This channel is not about shouting loud slogans or pretending that the heavy days do not exist. Instead, it is a conversation between friends, a shared journey where we explore the beautiful, messy, and deeply profound experience of being human. If you have arrived here today carrying the weight of exhaustion, if you feel burdened by expectations or shadowed by a quiet sense of doubt, I want you to know that you are seen and you are understood. We all carry invisible loads filled with fears, memories, and the echoes of things that did not go according to plan. You can set that heavy burden down right here. Take a breath with me. Today, we are going to explore a gentle but world-altering truth about how we perceive our own lives and the immense power resting quietly in your own mind. So often in this life, we find ourselves feeling like passengers in a vehicle driven by circumstance. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, the obligations of the day are already pressing against your chest. The alarm rings, and instantly the mind begins racing through a catalog of worries, deadlines, unresolved conflicts, and the quiet fear that perhaps you are not exactly where you are supposed to be. We move through our routines, commuting to jobs that might drain our spirit, navigating relationships that sometimes feel like they require constant translation, and absorbing the chaotic noise of a world that never stops demanding our attention. In the midst of this relentless motion, it is easy to adopt a posture of defense. We brace ourselves against the wind. We start believing that life is simply a series of external events happening to us, a random weather system of good luck and bad luck, and that our only job is to survive the storm. This feeling of powerlessness is one of the most common psychological struggles of the modern era. It breeds a quiet despair. It whispers that the script of your life has already been written by your past, by your environment, and by your failures. But history offers us a different perspective, a profound interruption to this narrative of surrender. In the late 19th century, the pioneering psychologist and philosopher William James made an observation that would ripple through the decades and fundamentally shift our understanding of human potential. Looking back on the vast expanse of human development, the technological marvels and the scientific breakthroughs of his era, he did not point to electricity or industry as the pinnacle of achievement. Instead, he observed that the greatest discovery of his generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitude. This is a sentence that requires us to pause. It is a concept so vast yet so intimate that it holds the capacity to completely dismantle the walls we have built around our own potential. James was not suggesting a superficial trick of the mind. He was pointing to the very architecture of human consciousness. He was revealing that the ultimate frontier of human freedom is not located in the changing of our external landscapes, but in the deliberate conscious adjustment of our internal posture. We need to be very careful here to distinguish this profound psychological truth from the modern illusion of toxic positivity. Altering your attitude does not mean forcing a smile while your heart is breaking. It does not mean denying the reality of pain, grief, or systemic hardship. It is deeply unhealthy to suppress genuine human emotion under a blanket of artificial cheerfulness. When life shatters your expectations, it hurts. When you experience loss, the sorrow is real and necessary. Acknowledging your pain is the first vital step of any true healing process. Attitude, in the deep psychological sense that William James meant, is not about the suppression of dark emotions. Rather, it is the lens through which you choose to view those emotions and the circumstances that created them. It is the framework you construct to hold your experiences. Think of it as the difference between standing in a heavy rainstorm and screaming at the sky for making you wet, versus standing in that same rainstorm, accepting that you are drenched, and deciding to walk purposefully toward shelter while observing how the water nourishes the earth around you. The rain remains exactly the same. The external reality is unaltered, but the internal experience of that reality has shifted from victimhood to agency. Consider the silent battles we fight within the theater of our own minds. particularly the phenomenon we often call impostor syndrome. So many brilliant, capable individuals walk through their days haunted by the suspicion that they are somehow fraudulent, that their successes are merely the result of a clerical error in the universe, and that soon everyone will discover they are not enough. This is not a reflection of reality. It is a reflection of a rigidly negative attitude toward the self. When you operate under the attitude of inadequacy, your brain acts as a highly efficient filtering system. It actively ignores every compliment, every achievement, and every moment of competence, tossing them into the mental trash bin. Simultaneously, it magnifies every tiny mistake, every awkward conversation, and every minor setback, mounting them on the wall as undeniable evidence of your unworthiness. Your attitude dictates your perception, and your perception eventually hardens into your reality. By altering the attitude, by consciously choosing to treat yourself with the same level of objective fairness and compassion that you would offer to a dear friend, you literally change the world you inhabit. You begin to dismantle the mental prison built by your own inner critic. This struggle is deeply magnified by the era in which we live. We are constantly exposed to the curated, polished highlights of millions of other lives. We scroll through streams of apparent perfection, absorbing images of success, beauty, and absolute certainty. Unconsciously, we begin to measure our chaotic, unedited reality against everyone else's opening night performance. This comparison breeds a toxic attitude of scarcity. We begin to feel that we are falling behind on some imaginary timeline, that the window for our own joy or success is rapidly closing. The psychological toll of this chronic comparison is devastating. It drains our motivation and leaves us paralyzed by the fear that whatever we attempt will never be grand enough to matter. But the truth is, there is no universal clock ticking down your worth. The journey of identity formation and personal actualization is profoundly individual. It does not follow a straight line. It circles back on itself, it pauses in the wilderness, and it often moves backward before it leaps forward. The renowned psychiatrist Carl Jung powerfully stated that I am not captured this truth. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Become. Altering your attitude means violently consciously rejecting the metric of comparison. It means realizing that the only soil where your unique potential can grow is the soil of your own actual life. How do we begin to make this monumental shift? It does not happen overnight in a flash of lightning. It happens in the microscopic spaces of our daily existence. The renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl profoundly noted that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is the exact mechanism of altering your attitude. Something happens to you. A project fails at work. Someone you trust betrays your confidence. You receive discouraging news about your health. The stimulus is painful, and the immediate involuntary emotional reaction is fear, anger, or despair. But then, right after that initial wave, there is a fraction of a second. There is a quiet, sacred space where the conscious mind can step in. In that space, you have a choice. The habitual attitude will tell you that the world is against you, that you are destined to fail, and that you should simply surrender. But the conscious, altered attitude pauses and asks a different set of questions. What can I learn from this? How can this obstacle become a detour towards something else? What small piece of this situation is actually within my control? When we ask these empowering questions, we are not changing the past, but we are fundamentally altering the trajectory of our future. Let us look deeply at the anatomy of a setback. Imagine a person who pours their heart and soul into a creative endeavor, a business, or a relationship, only to watch it collapse. The pain of that collapse is agonizing. The default attitude is to view this collapse as a definitive judgment on their character. The mind says that because I failed, I am a failure. This attitude creates a state of psychological paralysis. They withdraw, they build walls around their heart, and they refuse to take risks again, guaranteeing that their life becomes smaller and colder. Now, imagine the same collapse, the exact same external circumstance, but approached with an altered attitude. This person allows themselves to grieve the loss, fully and deeply. But eventually, they look at the wreckage and say that this particular endeavor did not survive. but my capacity to build has not been destroyed. The lessons learned in this failure are the blueprints for the next attempt. This attitude does not erase the pain, but it metabolizes the pain into wisdom. It takes the heavy stones of disappointment and uses them to pave a road forward. This transition from the passive recipient of fate to the active architect of one's destiny, moving from a passive observer of your life to its active creator, requires a deep engagement with the concept of responsibility. In our modern vocabulary, responsibility often feels like a heavy, punitive word. We associate it with blame or fault. But at its psychological core, responsibility simply means the ability to respond. It is the ultimate declaration of personal power. When you take responsibility for your attitude, you are telling the universe that no matter what cards are dealt to you, you intend to play the hand with absolute dignity and fierce resolve. You stop waiting for someone else to arrive and fix your life. You stop waiting for the circumstances to become perfectly aligned before you decide to be happy. You realize that peace is not a place you arrive at when all the noise stops. Rather, peace is a posture you cultivate while the noise is still happening. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote that our life is what our thoughts make it. He was a man leading an empire through war, plague, and betrayal. Yet he understood that his only true dominion was the territory of his own mind. As you embark on this journey of altering your attitude, the most vital companion you must bring with you is self-compassion. The desire to change can sometimes twist into another weapon we use against ourselves. We become angry that we are not healing fast enough. We judge ourselves harshly for having negative thoughts or for experiencing days where getting out of bed feels like moving mountains. This harshness completely defeats the purpose. The psychologist Carl Rogers observed that the curious paradox is that beautiful truth. When I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. You cannot bully yourself into a better attitude. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you actually love. True transformation requires an environment of warmth and acceptance. When you catch yourself spiraling into fear or self-pity, do not berate yourself. Gently notice what is happening as if you were observing a frightened child, and softly guide your mind back to a place of strength. Say to yourself that you are having a difficult day, and that is okay. Acknowledge that you are human, you are learning, and you will simply try again in the next moment. This grace is the fertile soil in which true resilience takes root. As we draw this conversation to a close, I want you to sit quietly with the realization of your own agency. The past is a ghost, and it cannot touch you unless you give it your energy. The future is an unwritten page waiting for the ink of your current choices. All of your power exists right here in the present moment, in the quiet space where you decide what attitude you will bring to the next hour of your life. Choose the attitude of a learner rather than a victim. Choose the attitude of someone who knows their inherent worth is not up for debate. When you do this, the external world will slowly begin to rearrange itself to match the dignity of your internal state. You will discover, just as William James promised, that you hold the keys to your own liberation. Your circumstances do not define your destiny. Your conscious response to them builds the architecture of your entire world. If this conversation brought you peace or sparked a light within you today, please like this video, share it with someone who might need these words, and subscribe to Power in Words so we can continue walking this beautiful journey forward together.